We are all intimately familiar with military life in the Halo universe. The entirety of the games and books have been based to the overwhelming majority in wartime as a member of humanity's unionized military defense force, the UNSC. But the UNSC and the life that surrounds military service, just as in our real world, makes up only a small fraction of the human experience on the day-to-day across humanity's empire in the 2500's. So what is it like to just be an average civilian in the 26th century? Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00, and following a Discord conversation I had with Z-Force, I wanted to put more stock into some ideas that were tossed around during that conversation. So this is the first of two videos where I narratively explore some rather interesting facets of the Halo universe. So once again, shout out to Z-Force for our conversation and inspiring these videos, and remember, if you want to have a chat with me and throw around some awesome ideas for future videos, or even just chill, hang out, maybe play some Halo, or just have some deep conversation, be sure to head to the description or to the link at the top of the comments and join the Discord server. I look forward to seeing you there. So with that said, it's time to get on to the bulk of this video, and that is to look at what it's like to be an average human in the Halo universe in the 26th century. What is human culture like? What technology is available to the average consumer, and what are the pros and cons of living during this time? Well, as I outlined in the beginning, we only know what it's like to serve in the military or exist within the highly militarized UNSC during wartime, and it's hardly surprising. Halo is a story of war, of rising up against impossible odds, of deeds of heroics and selfless sacrifice for the continued existence of our species when threatened with genocide at the hands of an alien conglomerate. Even the deeper lore surrounds the war between two ancient alien civilizations, and the megastructures and echoes of conflict left in the all-consuming wake of their final great stand against their own extinction. The core idea to get to grips with before we really get into this is that practically all of the structures of modern civilization are heavily dependent upon technology, and technology ultimately informs how advanced a culture and society can become. As if its general population are struggling to survive from moment to moment and don't know when their next meal is coming, it's unreasonable to expect they're going to be doing a 9 to 5 and paying their taxes and contributing to the betterment of society as a whole. Case in point, organised civilization just didn't exist until agriculture, cultivation, and farming technologies were developed and applied. Before this, small bands and groups of humans used very simple hunter-gatherer methods to gain nourishment, resources, and sustainability. Every person was basically responsible for carrying their own weight, to a degree. If you weren't hunting, you were fighting against predators or other tribes, raising children or gathering food and resources, or turning those resources into usable items such as clothes, tools, and weapons. These tasks took time, and since there's only 24 hours in a day, and you spend most of the day surviving, it leaves very little room for any real higher intellectual work. Once agriculture and farming were developed, a handful of individuals within the group could be made responsible for producing enough food for the whole tribe. This meant that others could be freed up from hunting, gathering food, or fighting to focus on other more intellectual endeavours that would eventually benefit everyone. It took these focused, more intellectual endeavours to create the first great civilizations, and indeed a similar feat to achieve the Industrial Revolution. Everything after a culture's own Industrial Revolution becomes an upward technological growth spiral that, assuming their baser instincts of war and destruction don't destroy their society, or a natural disaster resets the clock, so to speak, would continue exponentially into the future. That's where we find ourselves here today. Despite narrowly avoiding some world-ending disasters, both natural and man-made, we exist in as close to a perpetual and ever-increasing technological growth that periodically develops whole new arms of society in fields of research and development and innovations that lay new foundations upon which the next generation can build the next iteration of development upon. And so it continues. Now, this isn't the is-all and end-all of society and culture, of course. There are still some statutes of common decency, morality, ethics and the like that can and do exist completely independently from technological innovation. But since the UNSC and humanity as a whole in the 26th century are heavily technological, it would align that most of the parameters I just outlined apply very closely to Halo's human empire. So, first and foremost, we can take a look at the technologies of the UNSC and figure out how they apply to the average civilian population. So we can use a lot of real-world examples and analogues to get a good feel for what civilian life is like. We can look at technology available to the UNSC at both the very common and even standard issue end of the spectrum, all the way up to the extremely rare and bespoke technology that only a select few ever get the opportunity to use. This will all inform our final picture of life in the 26th century. Now, let me also interject and counter the claim that the military have technology at least 50 years more advanced than what civilians have. No, they don't. Let's just make something clear. These claims are often levied directly in regards to the military-industrial complex, the part of the military that many consider to be the ones operating places like Area 51, working for a shadow government and developing extremely sophisticated reverse-engineered technology from UFOs and other alien technology, and working alongside aliens amongst a lot of other conspiracy theories which, interestingly enough, seem to be steadily being proven to actually have some truth to them, to whatever degree that may be. That aspect of the military-industrial complex that seemingly consume trillions of the US defense budget every year and that Dwight Eisenhower warned us of many moons ago, they may indeed be capable of advanced technologies beyond what is currently publicly available. But the military at large, the frontline troops, even the top brass? No, absolutely not. And the military-industrial complex in our real world would be an analogue for the Office of Naval Intelligence in the Halo universe. So we can kind of leave those aside. Generally speaking, the technology that the military at large have is technology that is usually being developed by a civilian company with a military contract, and even then the technology originally proposed is often scaled back and made either simpler, cheaper, or both. That's the unfortunate reality that men and women on the front lines, putting their lives on the line for the freedoms enjoyed by so many, are not the ones benefiting directly from our advanced technology. But that's another debate. So from this we can deduce that much of what we see the UNSC using during wartime is synonymous technology to that being used by the masses, perhaps with the exception of the technological advancements which come about directly as a consequence of war and reverse engineering covenant and foreigner technology. So with this in mind, what technologies point towards the human experience in the 26th century? Well, every UNSC soldier at enlistment is given a neural implant with a built-in IFF transponder. Let's be clear, that's brain surgery with a sophisticated brain-computer interface device. The neural implant can be upgraded to the CNI or Command Neural Interface, which adds additional functionality including the neural lace, a string of semiconducting filament that stretches deep into the midbrain and allows data to be uploaded and downloaded from the brain of the user at will. That's no mean feat, and the upgraded Spartan neural interface allows them to directly connect the brain to Mjolnir-powered assault armor, allowing them to control the suit with thought alone. So with these technologies being available to every single enlisted member of the UNSC, that means in wider society, these implants exist as well, and would likely enable you to interact with the world around you via thought alone. During the fall of Reach and Operation First Strike, numerous Spartans required flash-grown organ replacements. These organs were cloned from the individual's own DNA and grown in a few hours in a method not dissimilar to 3D printing. They could then be transplanted and the recipient would see no organ rejection, and the organ would operate at peak efficiency because it had not already experienced a partial lifetime of work in another human body. So again, if this is available through medical treatment, that goes for civilians too. Kat, Commander Agrina, and even Dr. Halsey have received extremely advanced prosthetic limb technology, with Kat and Agrina being heavy-duty variants to operate alongside their Mjolnir-powered assault armour. But for civilian use, such prosthetic limbs wouldn't have to be quite as heavy-duty and rugged, and could afford to be more aesthetic in their design or with hidden features. Think Deus Ex, that kind of thing. The UNSC makes heavy use of heads-up displays in augmented reality, not just with the Spartans and their miraculous suits, but the ODSTs and their visor systems, the Marines and their green monocle HUD readouts, and during Contact Harvest, even Johnson sported a sleek pair of augmented reality shooter's glasses. Halsey had been known to wear a pair of glasses that scanned and projected information directly onto her retinas, and that she frequently used to control many automated and computer systems around her without having to directly interact with them. Skyhooks, space elevators, and single-stage-to-orbit vessels grant humans direct access to space at a very affordable cost. Travelling to another continent is as fast as simply getting an Uber to take you to your neighbours. Holidays now include deep space voyages on luxury space cruise ships. You can take a trip to the moons of Jupiter or travel to nearly any of the 800 human colonies in between days to weeks. Slipspace engines have literally opened the stars to humanity, and although being one of the single most expensive pieces of equipment created by humanity, can be found upon practically every ship much bigger than a Condor. Gravity generation systems on ships that enable a consistent and comfortable 1G are so widely used and employed across space transit and the colonies that they've been utilised in children's toys. When children grow up, they can play grav ball, skimming balls across anti-gravity courts. In the classroom, they are taught and educated via soft holographics that float in the air in front of them. Even moving away from the individual, the UNSC have long since mastered fusion technology, allowing energy in abundance. No more paying for your utilities. Energy can be established, sustained, and distributed on even newly established colonies within days. With abundance of energy, more feats of immense engineering become possible. Cars can run nearly perpetually with enhanced internal combustion engines that can turn water, even wastewater, into propellant. And those that aren't internal combustion are a form of electric car that either charge almost instantly with supercapacitor batteries or are powered by onboard small, specially hardened fusion cells. So what does human life look like in the 26th century with all of this technology? It depends on where you live. So let's start with the outer colonies. You're likely born to a family with not dissimilar social status and living conditions as what we have today in the more developed nations. You most likely have a modest income, thus will likely spend most of your life on the colony you were born on, never seeing much beyond that, unless you enlist in the UNSC, land a high-profile job, or a space-based job such as ship crew logistics or public transportation. In all likelihood, you attend a decent enough school by today's standards, and enjoy majoritively free healthcare. Your world, depending on what resources it provides to the inner colonies, is highly industrialised or commercialised, and those parts that aren't are basically unkempt alien wilderness. You'd likely spend your early years playing and exploring with friends, living a pretty quintessentially standard childhood. Upon reaching adulthood, you either fall in line and carry on the work of your parents and their parents before them, or you enlist or land a job and get off world. But it's much more likely you're staying where you are. It is now that you begin to realise the struggles and strains of life. Life isn't tough by the standards we'd compare them to nowadays, but there are certainly many colonies, particularly the inner colonies, that live much better and more sedentary lives than you do. The political inequalities become very evident at this stage. The UNSC and the UEG at large take large portions of the resources your colony produce, as well as severely taxing the colony and its civilian populace, all of which, to your perception, is spent making the inner colony worlds bigger, better and safer, and leaving you and your people as an afterthought. You and your colony have no political representation in the United Earth government, so taxation without representation is a huge problem that seemingly shows no signs of resolution. Even the protection that is afforded to your colony against pirates, rebels, insurrectionists and the Covenant via the UNSC either show up late, long after the damage has been done, or don't show up at all. In fact, worst case scenario, to add insult to injury, if you are in a colony that has a UNSC or ONI base, you get to watch them pack up and leave to save their own skins, while leaving you and your family to your own devices. You know how severely the war with the Covenant is going for humanity, by the way. Communication between the outer colonies is much more established, unregulated and unrestricted by the UEG's oversight, so information doesn't mysteriously go missing in transit. News of a colony falling in hours to the Covenant with near 100% mortality rates gets through to the other outer colonies unhindered, while that same news is suppressed and overshadowed by ONI propaganda claiming the Spartans have won yet another victory. On the days you can somewhat occlude that overhanging morbidity, you work long, hard hours. You may own your home. You may have years of loyal service to your employer, but at a moment's notice, policy could change coming down from the inner colonies who practically own everything, and that ultimately leads to them being able to snatch all of that away from you at a moment's notice. If you do choose to get politically involved and demand your colony's rightful independence from the UEG, at best, you're completely ignored. At worst, you're designated a rebel or insurrectionist sympathizer, and become collateral damage should ONI decide to silence your cause. You can raise a family, but you'll be bringing your children into the same life you've already lived, with no real promise for a better life for them. Nothing really changes here. It hasn't for hundreds of years. When you grow old, you may be fortunate enough to have enough credits to book yourself into a retirement home that will majoritively look after your needs until you finally kick the bucket. And when you do, your family will likely be notified well after the fact. You'll be cremated because burying you would cost too much, and it's entirely possible the real estate put aside for your burial could be bought up and your grave desecrated to make way for a new industrial unit. That's a pretty dystopian and bleak outlook of life in the outer colonies. So personally, you can completely understand why so many in the outer colonies want their independence and are willing to go to extreme ends to achieve it. For them, it's the only real way to gain agency and control of their lives and break a cycle that has been in place since their colony was established. But what of the inner colonies? That is a very different story altogether. You're likely born with no genetic defects or conditions whatsoever. Medical science is so sophisticated that your genetics were optimized and any undesirable traits or conditions are written out. These kind of treatments now are so trivial that if you do need health insurance it wouldn't cost much at all, but in all likelihood, paying for healthcare was abolished centuries ago. So you already have the best start in life. You were raised likely eating genetically modified foods that are designed so precisely as to give you maximum nutritional benefit without any negative side effects. This food was grown and harvested on industrial scales so large it's difficult to picture. So food is also extremely cheap. When you go to school, you and your classmates are likely taught either by an AI or at least by a person under the direct instruction and curriculum devised by an AI and tailored to your very own specific set of strengths and weaknesses. Once you have a basic curriculum, an ability to read, write and do basic mathematics, you can basically sleep your way through school and still graduate. And when you do, you have on par with an Ivy League education and a foundational understanding of the universe that completely and utterly dwarfs even postgraduate educations in the real world right now, and that's just straight out of school. You'll have an extremely robust set of life skills, and if your parents are wealthy enough, you may even have a neural implant that allows information to be uploaded directly to your brain, making learning even more easier. Many blue-collar jobs are now automated entirely, performed by robots or handled entirely autonomously. Logistics, service industry, white-collar jobs, space-based occupations, and jobs seated in the STEM fields and creative jobs in the arts, music and culture are now much more pronounced and more in demand than ever. You can spend your working career chasing passions and doing what you love, earning money on Waypoint, basically the Halo universe's equivalent of online. Or if indeed you aim to just get by in life, the jobs you do land are good condition jobs, well paid, and allow you ample disposable income to enjoy the fruits that life has to offer. You can own a home that basically runs itself, that is designed specifically to meet your needs and reacts to your presence. Anything you could want or need can be fabricated and delivered to your home within 24 hours. Your home itself likely has a capacity to reconfigure itself to tailor your environment to your mood, needs, wants, desires, and overall health. You could go into the city where the air is clean and fresh, with pollutive cars, energy and industry having completely disappeared a few hundred years before you were born. The city itself is administrated and run by a superintendent-class AI that is capable of tracking you across the city and notifying the police if it suspects you are in any danger before you even realise there's an issue. Crime rates in the city then are massively lower than in modern cities, and car accidents are basically non-existent, with the AI able to intervene and prevent them by reconfiguring the roads and signage at will. You could own a car that you could charge up instantly or pour waste water into the fuel tank and drive multiple times farther and longer than any 5 modern cars put together. If you have a minor or major ailment or injury, you can visit an Opticare module in the city, an entirely automated healthcare system, and the system will scan, diagnose, and provide you with medical treatment to fix it all within minutes, and all practically free of charge. If you are unfortunate and come down with something more severe, hospitals are equipped to flash clone new organs for you, heal wounds and breaks in hours, treat infections in minutes, and rid your mind and body of pathogens, toxins, oxidative stress, free radicals, or non-beneficial biological organisms as easy as washing your hands. Oh, and don't worry about cancer. It was made extinct in the 22nd century, to the point that most people don't even know the name anymore. Malaria, HIV and AIDS, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, even cerebral palsy, and an array of other debilitating conditions can be ID'd, treated, and often cured before you even exhibit any symptoms. Your home actually helps with this by monitoring your biosigns, pheromones, and constantly analysing your urine and stool. A bit grim, but hey, you're alive and you're healthy. You'd be able to visit family on the other side of the planet like they were next door, or travel to the moon for a long weekend for the same relative price as an overnight stay in a hotel. The war with the Covenant is as much a part of your day-to-day as wars fought on distant shores here on Earth. It's something that is happening, but it's just not very high on your list of priorities, owed in no small part by the news claiming that humanity, fronted by the Spartans, are winning campaign after campaign against the alien aggressors. So while the news of alien aggressors waging war on humanity is of minor interest, it's not like humanity as a whole are unfamiliar with the reality that we are most definitely not alone in the universe. Our first colonies proved that life in all its myriad forms exists on countless other worlds, not just Earth. So in this regard, knowing that a war is being won and that it's being fought on distant outer colony worlds, it's a proportionally trivial part of your day-to-day. And indeed, if you do overhear rumours or people speaking the truth of the realities of war and that humanity are categorically losing at every major engagement in the outer colonies, you chalk it up to being conspiracy theorists, crackpots, and brush it off. You could take a holiday to the Jovian moons or Titan, in orbit around Saturn. If your job is sufficiently high profile enough, you may be sent on business trips across the inner and outer colonies. You'd spend large gulfs of time and space between in cryosuspension, utterly unaware of the passage of time, and awakening the other end having not aged a moment. Oh, and don't worry, returning home and being weeks, months, or even years younger than the people you left there would be so commonplace it would no longer be looked upon as odd at all. There could very well be a scenario where yourself and your child end up being the same biological age, even if your chronological ages still differ. That's another thing. If you want a family, you could start in your 20s. Or, given how much longer and healthier people live in the 26th century, you could start a family in your 60s and still live to see them grow up and have kids of their own. It's likely that families could have 6 or 7 generations alive at the same time. You'll likely live well into your 100s, but you also won't experience the aches, pain, fatigue, fogginess of mind, forgetfulness, and all the other unpleasant parts of getting old. You'll actually maintain a similar level of physicality you had when you were in your 20s. Just when you look in the mirror, your hair will have greyed and your skin will look like it needs a good iron. When you do pass away, it would likely be peacefully in your sleep, surrounded by your loved ones. Your home will have been monitoring you and picked up the signs of waning life in advance, notifying your family to gather at your side. At the moment you pass, your home will automatically react to your passing by chilling the property to freezing temperatures, preserving your body in the condition it was at the moment you passed. How is that for a life in the future? A life in the outer colonies isn't bad by modern day standards. In fact, life in the outer colonies bears, oddly enough, a closer resemblance to modern day life than I care to mention, but it does have its glaring issues that should serve as a cautionary tale for our own current projected sociological standing. But life in the inner colonies, particularly amongst the first few colonies established during humanity's expansion, is so vastly different and more advanced that between that and the lack of independence, exploitation for the benefit of the inner colonies and Earth, and the taxation without representation, and being left completely alone when attacked by the Covenant, it's completely understandable why the insurrectionists and United Rebel Front have had enough of the UEG. I'd say, given the choice, I'd prefer to live in the inner colonies, but I do love an underdog story.
Thanks for watching. If I could respectfully ask, if you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the subscribe button and the little bell icon so you're told the second a new video hits the shelves. Hit this video with a like if you enjoyed, and if not, it's not a problem. And be sure to pop a comment below to throw me an idea on what you want to see next. Massive thanks to my awesome patrons, Spartan10148, the Metarch of my facility, Falcon, Prophet, Leon, Sylphia, Mikhail, and Irrefutable, the monitors of the array, Darian, Flaming Halo, Cameron, Spartan0137, the Cave Potato, Andrew, Shia, Dakota, and Ghost, my diligent sub-monitors, my fleet of Strato Sentinels, and my loyal enforcers, and all other patrons who have supported the channel and helped keep the domain operational. Huge props and recognition to Todd Morrison, Spartan137, Wesley Stuckey, and Jacob Kemp for jumping on as Tier 0 Transcendent YouTube members. You guys are epic. Shout out to John for reasons. And if you want to help support the channel and score yourself tons of perks and merch, head over to Patreon or consider becoming a YouTube member. Links, as ever, are in the description. Much love. Take it easy, everyone, and find peace in the domain.